When you think of Fiji, what comes to mind? Probably paradise, right? Crystal clear water, palm trees, white sand beaches. But what if I told you that underneath all that beauty, something really dark is happening? A story about narcotics, global crime, and a public health catastrophe that's threatening the very soul of the islands. Ooh la. You hear that word everywhere. It's the famous Fijian greeting, right? It means life, and it's just full of warmth and hospitality. It's the sound of that paradise you see in all the travel ads. Yeah, this isn't that story. This is the story of what happens when that paradise becomes a target, when it gets exploited by criminals who leave behind an absolute disaster for the local people to deal with. Okay, so let's get into it. Our story really kicks off the moment this whole crisis just burst out of the shadows and into the international spotlight. I'm talking about the biggest drug bust in the nation's entire history. So picture this. It's January 2024. The police get a tip, and they raid this vacant house that's still under construction in Nadi. And Nadi is, the heart of Fiji's tourism industry, right next to the international airport. And what they found inside, honestly, it was just staggering. They go inside, and they find almost 800 taped-up containers. And what's in them? Over 4 tons of pure methamphetamine. I mean, think about that. For a country with less than 1 million people, that amount it's astronomical. There's no way it was all for local use. And the street value? Get this, 2 billion Fijian dollars. That's over 1.3 billion US dollars. This wasn't some small-time operation. It was a massive, flashing neon sign that Fiji had become a major stop on a global drug highway. And when this whole thing went to trial, the details that came out were, wow, it was like something straight out of a Hollywood movie. We're talking about super yachts meeting on the high seas, coordinates being swapped on sat phones. This bust really ripped the curtain back on a super sophisticated global criminal network. So, of course, that discovery just led to an even bigger question. How on earth did this beautiful, small island nation end up as such a critical hub for international drug traffickers? Well, the answer really comes down to one thing: geography. Just look at a map. Fiji is this perfect waypoint in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's positioned right between the drug producers and the really, really lucrative markets in Australia and New Zealand, where the price of meth is through the roof. But here's the kicker. These drugs were never meant to stay in Fiji. It was just supposed to be a pit stop. But some of it did stay. A piece of these huge shipments started to, spill over into the local community. And that created a massive problem that just wasn't there before. I mean, look at this timeline. It shows you just how fast this thing exploded. Meth cases more than tripled in just 4 years. And look at 2022, a record number of cases involving kids. It's just devastating. Yeah, it got so bad that during that big trial, the state prosecutor, John Rabuku, he just laid it out in open court. He basically said Fiji is becoming a hub for this stuff. This wasn't just a one-time thing. And the consequences of all that drug spillover, well, they turned out to be absolutely catastrophic. And this massive crime wave? It was really just the beginning, because it unleashed a second, and you could argue an even more devastating crisis that the country was just not ready for: an HIV epidemic. Just look at these numbers, the timeline. It lines up almost perfectly with the rise of meth. The number of people living with HIV in Fiji tripled in only 4 years. That is not a coincidence. It's a direct consequence of what's been happening. And right here, this is the undeniable proof of that link. By 2024, almost half of all new patients who were starting HIV treatment were people who inject drugs. Unsafe needle practices, fueled by this addiction. That became the main way the virus was spreading. Things got bad so fast that by January of 2025, the government of Fiji had no other choice. They had to officially declare an HIV outbreak. They were acknowledging that this was now a full-blown national crisis. And behind all these shocking statistics, there are real people with real stories. People like Khaleesi Volatabu, who now, amazingly, runs an anti-drug organization. She talks about her own past, dealing with abuse and trauma. For her and for so many others, she says meth wasn't about getting high. It was about trying to numb an unbearable pain. Her story, that's the human face of this whole epidemic. But look,
Fiji is not just a passive victim here, not at all. The nation is mobilizing. They are fighting back against the drug traffickers and the public health crisis that they left in their wake.
So the government has declared a national emergency, and these numbers show you why. In just 1 year, police logged almost 2,500 drug cases. But what really jumps out at you is the age of the people involved, 18 to 35. This is a crisis that's literally threatening to steal an entire generation. So what are they doing about it? Well, they're hitting it from all sides. They're setting up new police bases on the water to try and cut off those smuggling routes. They've got joint police and military raids called Operation Sasamaki going after dealers on the ground. They've even created a whole new counter-narcotics bureau to coordinate everything. And crucially, they're trying to empower communities with awareness programs. It really is an all-hands-on-deck effort. So here's what it all comes down to. Fiji never asked for this fight. It's a small island nation that got caught in the crossfire between geography and the greed of these huge global crime syndicates. It's become a battleground, right? A place where that postcard image of paradise is crashing head-on with a brutal reality. Paradise is literally fighting for its soul. And that just leaves us with one final, pretty heavy thought. Can a crisis like this ever really be solved if the rest of the world just looks away?